caught to swim.
Or to breathe underwater. But note the bridge, Marcus. Neptune enters Taurus in 2039, the first Neptunian ingress in an Earth sign since the 19th century. Neptune in Taurus is the dream of value, currency, ecology, food, and the felt sense of security. Money becomes myth. Myth becomes money. A dangerous combination. Neptune dissolves, Taurus holds. The result is speculative bubbles in food, land, and water, and the rise of what I will call the architecture of trust, verification systems, asset-backed value, and ecological accounting.
And the beautiful reading. Neptune in Taurus is the re-enchantment of the material world. Regenerative agriculture, sacred ecology, and the healing of the split between economy and ecosystem. For 20 years, the Earth itself becomes the object of the collective dream.
Selene, you keep finding the sunrise. I keep watching for the flood. That, I suspect, is exactly why this debate matters. Chapter 3. The Waters of Pisces, 2043 to 2066. Pluto's passage through the 12th sign, the longest single transit of this century.
23 years. A generation is born, lives its childhood, and reaches adulthood inside a single planetary signature. Let us be clear about what Pluto in Pisces touches: prisons and hospitals, addiction and asylum, faith and fiction, and the great collective unconscious.
Historically, Pluto's last pass through Pisces, 1794 to 1798, bracketed the terror and the birth of modern finance. We should expect comparable intensity, the collapse of corrupt faith institutions, the reformation of medicine, and scandals that dissolve the credibility of entire systems.
And also, the most hopeful possibility in this entire century, the fusion of science and consciousness. Pluto in Pisces is the transit under which we may finally map the mind, neural interfaces, collective intelligence, and a genuine science of the subjective. The 18th century industrialized matter, the 21st will industrialize mind.
Here is where I must challenge you directly. You are describing the same transit I am describing, yet you see laboratory benches and I see abbeys in flames. The discipline of delineation demands we state our assumptions. I weight historical parallel, you weight evolutionary possibility. Both are legitimate, neither is certain.
Agreed, and that is the rigor of it. But let me add a fixed date to the debate. Neptune squares Neptune across 2050 and 2051, the generational crisis of the dream itself. Whatever ideals are ascendant in the 40s will meet their own shadow at mid-century. So the early 50s are the fulcrum of the century, and the 2060s bring the great exchange. Uranus enters Leo in 2058, and Saturn and Neptune conjoin in Gemini in 2061, closing the cycle that opened in 2026. The world that emerges will be governed by the intelligence it created.
Chapter 4, April 7, 2060. Jupiter and Saturn conjoin at the beginning of Taurus, the pivot of the Earth phase. Taurus rules the land, minerals, energy, food, and habitation. The 2060s will be defined by the ownership of the physical Earth, and the planetary bargain over who holds it.
And the century's tide turns in the same years. Pluto leaves Pisces for Aries in 2066, with final entry in February 2068. The water age ends, the fire age begins.
And I must read that fire with the historian's caution. Pluto in Aries is the signature of the warrior. Its last full passage bracketed the American Revolution and the Napoleonic Age. The late 60s and 70s carry the highest martial potential of this century.
And I answer, Pluto in Aries is also the transit of the pioneer, the inventor, and the freedom fighter. The same fire that burns cities lights torches. Delineation is choice, Marcus. The astrology of the future is the astrology of what we choose to become.
Chapter 5. Fire and the Collective, 2068 to 2080. Pluto in Aries, Neptune in Gemini, Uranus in Leo, three outer planets in fire and air. The sky of this decade is bright, restless, and combustible.
Pluto in Aries completes the sovereignty movement that began with Neptune in Aries in the 20s. Self-governing communities, direct digital democracy, and the end of the nation-state as the sole container of power.
And Neptune in Gemini, completing its passage by the late 60s, brings the plague of the plausible, The uncoupling of belief from evidence at population scale. Every culture will need institutions that can certify reality itself.
Which is why Uranus in Leo, through the early 70s, returns the great individual to the center of history. I predict the great figures of the 70s will be artists as much as politicians. The culture bearers become the power bearers.
Chapter 6. March 15, 2080. Jupiter and Saturn conjoin in Aquarius, the closest great conjunction of the century, mirroring the conjunction that opened it in 2020. The commons, atmosphere, oceans, data, genome, become the central battlefield of the 80s.
And the synthesis is elegant, the sovereign individual governing the global commons, while Uranus enters Libra toward 2089. The signature of justice, courts, and the balance of power. I forecast a planetary constitutional moment, the like of which has not been seen since the Enlightenment.
And I forecast the resistance to it. Pluto in Aries burns against the settlement, Uranus in Libra litigates it. The 80s will be a decade of legal warfare, secession crises, and the slow construction of legitimacy. The Enlightenment took a century. So will this.
Chapter 7. Earth under Taurus. Pluto enters Taurus in 2095, after its long passage through Aries. The perfect bookend to a century that began with Pluto in Aquarius. And Neptune in Cancer, from 2069, returns the collective dream to the home and the human. The final act is a reckoning with value itself. What is wealth, what is owned, and who decides?
Chapter 8 and the final chapter. September 18, 2100. Jupiter and Saturn conjoin in Sagittarius, closing the century's series of great conjunctions. Sagittarius is the sign of the quest. The 22nd century will be defined by its answers to the oldest questions. Why are we here, and where are we going?
So let us close the ledger. We have walked 100 years of sky, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 Aries, Pluto through Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. Neptune through 4 signs. Uranus through 6. And 8 great conjunctions. Every one of them read twice. The cautious and the visionary. That is the true method of mundane astrology. Not the prophecy, but the discipline of seeing both.
If I give the century one word, it is transformation. If Celine gives it one word, it is choice. The sky is the signature, the century is the choice.
You have been listening to the Century of Stars, a mundane astrology debate covering the years 2027 to 2100. The future is not written, it is cast. Thank you for watching.